Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast, Magic is Real. I am your host, Shannon. I am a psychic medium and a lover of all things metaphysical and spiritual. This is the podcast where I interview people about their spiritually transformative experiences with a focus on near-death experiences, supernatural, paranormal, both of which I believe are just natural and normal. And here to join us today is a psychic medium that I discovered on the internet, and his name is Christopher Brown. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, but then I'm going to have him tell you all about him and what he does. He's a fascinating guy. I really liked his down-to-earth approach. I like that he's a regular guy that is relatable. He's a psychic medium, nationally recognized evidential medium based in Maine, known for delivering accurate and validating messages. Christopher's work has taken him beyond private readings. He reads for audiences up and down the East Coast through live gallery demonstrations. And his growing recognition has led to national exposure, including being featured on truTV, as well as appearances on numerous paranormal and spirituality-focused platforms. His influence extends into mainstream visibility, highlighted by his appearance on a billboard in Times Square in New York City. That's pretty cool and exciting. In addition to his work as a medium, Christopher is an experienced paranormal investigator, and he is also an author, has a YouTube channel called Unfiltered Mediumship. I'm following him. You should too. I'll put the links underneath. In his book, I Fucking Knew It and the Untrained Medium, he shares his personal journey, spiritual development, and experiences working with the unseen world. He's been featured on a wide range of podcasts and media outlets, and today he is joining us here on Magic is Real. Christopher, thank you so much for joining me and my audience today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
This is awesome, and thank you for staying up late. It is 3 hours ahead on your where you are, and 7 p.m. here. I want to know all about you. I want to know what was your childhood like. Anything
Mhm.
you'd like to share about how you developed, how you knew that you were a medium,
Yeah.
and how you became a medium for a profession.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you had told me like 13 years ago, because I roughly started mediumship about 10 years ago. But if you had told me 13 years ago that I was going to be a medium, I would have probably laughed in your face.
Same.
You know, I didn't believe in any of this. And honestly, like oddly enough, I was an atheist to a
Me too.
degree. Like, I don't know, maybe atheist isn't the word, like agnostic, I guess. Like a gut feeling told me there was something greater, but I had no idea what that even could look like or what it could be. And that was pretty much like my whole growing up life. I was raised Catholic, recovering now. And, I just, that side of stuff didn't always settle with me. So it left a bad taste in my mouth in a way for spirituality and just kind of things of that nature. But if I look back over the years of my life, starting from when I was little and up to when I kind of first discovered myself as a medium, um, you know, I would see weird things. Like I remember when I was a kid, our neighbor passed away. We lived in, where was it? I think it was Groton, Connecticut.
I'm from
And
Connecticut, so I know where
are
that
you?
is.
No
Westport,
kid, yeah.
Connecticut.
Yep. So yeah, I grew up in Groton, Connecticut on the Navy base. My mom married a guy from the Navy, so we were there. But there was a gentleman, our neighbor, he had passed away. And I remember very distinctly, it's like the next day, he was standing at the end of his driveway. And I was like waving to him, and my mom's like, "Who are you waving at?" And I was like, "Our neighbor." And she's like, he's gone. He's passed away. I was like, "No, he's not. He's right there." you know? And so she kind of brushed it off a little bit. I think things like that freaked her out. So like I remember she had told me once that she had gotten a reading from a psychic years and years long before I was born, and they told her some really like dark negative stuff. So she kind of steered away from it big time. So she kind of brushed it off that day, and then we moved back to Maine, where I'm originally from. I was born in Maine and raised in Maine, but we had a short spell in Connecticut, and then we moved back to Maine, and we moved into this two-story duplex, or no, three-story duplex rather. Sorry, in Portland, Maine, and it was like really unassuming. Like, had you not realized or known it was haunted, you'd never look at it and go, "Yep, that's the house," But sure enough, like 3, 4 years after we lived there, like some really strange stuff started happening, and that was when I was maybe, I want to say between the ages of 13 and 18. I lived in that house roughly. But so around maybe 15 years old, I guess 15, 16 years old, that's when like the really weird, spooky stuff would start happening. And so because of the experiences that I had at that house, some of them dark, some of them not so much, but I could like my clairsentience kind of picked up in a way because like I could feel the vibrations of spirits around me. And again, I had no words for it. I didn't know what that meant, but I tell my friends, I can go somewhere and I can tell when there's a ghost around, just because I felt it. It was so weird. I could not describe it. I mean, you're a psychic medium. I'm sure you must know what that's like.
Yeah.
But it just I had no words, and so being at the haunted house kind of preemptive or I guess sparked my interest for paranormal stuff. We had moved out. A lot of strange experiences happened there, and we can definitely talk about those if you want. But
I like stories. Yeah.
yeah. But so to get to how I developed mediumship, I moved out at around 18 or so. Did my thing. I kind of stuffed the paranormal stuff down. It didn't fit my life. But I will say, my history is I got into drugs like really heavily, and I also was just trying to drown out some of like the noise in my head. It felt like I was in a room of like 40 plus people at all times, and everybody was talking all around me, but I couldn't pick up on a certain conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, over time, I was using alcohol and drugs to kind of shut that up. And then eventually I kind of got away from the drugs. And, doctors were like, I'd gone to a doctor. My mom had made me go to a doctor just because of all the stuff I was hearing and stuff. They said I had something called schizoaffective disorder, which the one thing that separated me from most of the other patients that they saw was that I knew it was like separate. I didn't
Hmm.
think it was a part of who I was, or I wasn't delusional necessarily. I just heard it. And so they're like, that's very bizarre. I remember seeing one doctor and she's like, why do you take this medication, why do you take that one, blah blah blah, because they gave me like a bag of them over time. And I was like, well, they say this and they say that, and she knocked me down to like two, one for depression and anxiety, and that was it. She goes, it's circumstantial, and she goes, you'll be all right. You know what I mean? Um, and so then, long after that, I was playing in the band that I'm in currently, and a friend of mine who had played in another band, he was into paranormal investigating. And since I was all into it and I'd grown up in that house, I was like, oh, dude, I want to go investigating with you. So we went to a place called Parsonsfield Seminary, which is an old, like religious seminary in Parsonsfield, Maine. It's like in West Maine, but went there, and it just so happened that the caretakers are like bringing a Christmas tree out from the previous season. They're like throwing it away, and so we were like, "Hey, like, can we go in there and check it out? We heard this place is haunted." And she was like, "Yeah, sure, come on in, like, no problem." So she took us on this big full tour, and like as I'm in there, I got those feelings again from when like I was in that house. And it was bizarre because like I got to this one spot in that house and I started picking up on something that felt like, again, it was exterior from me. It was like a gut feeling of a younger male spirit, and he was playing like games with me or whatever, like hide and seek kind of. And so I was like, wow, no, it's my imagination. Like, can't be real, can't be true. So I went home and I YouTubed that same place, Parsonsfield Seminary, and paranormal investigating was like the tag I used or whatever. And there was a medium on a team that was investigating, and she went to the same spot that I stood, and she said, there's a young boy spirit here, and he's playing games with me. And I was like, no way, like, you've got to be kidding me, right? Uh, and then I researched it. What is she doing? What does it mean to do what she does and talk to spirits and connect and get information in that way? And it led me to mediumship. And then it led me to watching like John Holland.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but you
He's one
know,
of the reasons I studied mediumship.
same. I watched his A&E special where he went to New York,
Oh,
and
I
it just
haven't
like
seen that one.
boom.
I read
Ah,
his book, and it was in his book that he said, anyone can do this. That
yes.
sparked it for me.
Yep. I totally agree with
Yeah.
him and you on that one, because it's like everybody can do it. Because like I
Hmm.
said, if you had told me years ago that I'd be doing it, I'd be like, yeah, right.
Oh, same.
Um, it's crazy. So I watched him. I watched, John Edward. I watched,
So did I.
Lisa Williams. All
Me
the
too. Oh my
TV.
God, all of it.
Yeah, yeah. I
YouTube,
loved all of it.
every.
So I just absorbed all of it. And then,
Hmm.
crazy enough, I started doing small mini readings on Facebook. There was these different Facebook groups, spiritual groups, and they'd post a picture of somebody who had passed, and they wouldn't leave any context besides, can anybody get anything off of this picture? And so for a while, I was just blurting out paragraphs of just like kind of almost like not trance writing, but automatic writing, I guess you could say. And people, sure enough, started validating the stuff I was picking up. And then a friend of mine was like, my wife wants a reading. And then I was like, ah, crap. Like, I got to
Yeah.
do this in person. Like, this is going to be scary. And it freaked me out. But I did it, and it was amazing, and it was beautiful. And that really just started the whole in person thing. And then it graduated to galleries. And then it graduated to doing it out of state, and it has been a wild and crazy journey. But it's been like 10 years since I officially have done mediumship on the regular.
That is so good. That's so similar to my story, and
Hmm.
everyone knows my story, so I won't repeat it. But I did read, like, I started to get into it, and I was reading Suzanne Giesemann's book. It was
Oh yeah, so
hers,
yeah,
her book, John Holland's book, and they have many, but
yeah,
one of the first. And I read Kim Russo's book and the Long Island Medium's book, and when I read them, every single one of them, I think John Holland was the first I read, and he said anyone can do this work.
yeah,
And I was like, what do you mean? I always thought, oh, I wish I could do what John Edward does. Now, can I do it
yes,
as well as John Edward does? No. But we all have our different styles anyway. But
right,
I do think a lot of people are naturals,
yep,
and they didn't try. It came to them, and it was really a
hmm,
life path for them. And
yeah,
then there are people that, like me and you, that we we are automatically sensitive neurologically. We just didn't maybe realize
yeah,
the extent of it.
hmm,
I too suffer from severe anxiety and I have since birth.
yeah,
And now I understand that's because we are highly sensitive people. Highly
hmm,
sensitive people will have an aptitude to do this work, but it doesn't mean that some logical mathematician can't do it too. If they are interested in it and open minded and willing to sit in stillness and learn how it works because they're interested in it. But
yeah,
it does also help to have a sensitive nervous system. And also, having a sensitive nervous system can be tough
yeah.
in this world, in this dense
Ugh,
world.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, when I was younger, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, at birthday parties, there'd be all these people around, and I would cry because it was so overwhelming.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle it. And like, again, people, oh, you're just being sensitive. And it's like, well, yeah, I was. I
Yeah.
totally was. you know?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no.
They thought that I was maybe autistic. And so the doctors were telling my parents I was selective mute. And the reason I stopped speaking was because everything was so overwhelming.
Oh
All the
my.
sensory input, I would just shut down, and I didn't want to interact with people. So I just became invisible to
Yeah.
shut out the world. And
Yeah.
and I know I can even just tell you, you might look like a tough guy because you got a beard and, a baseball cap on. You look like a nice guy, but,
Thank you.
someone might think like, oh, that looks like a guy that could maybe punch me if something went down. But I know that you're an empath because I know that empaths are drawn to this work.
Yeah.
So, I would love to, well, I would love to first talk about some of the experiences because I love a story. When
Sure.
you said let's talk about some of those things that you experienced. This was in your childhood, right?
Yeah. So like from about 13 to 18, yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the things that happened at that, I mean, it's funny because at that house, like I refer to it as cliche haunted, just
Mm-hmm.
because everything that you could think of, like all the cliche paranormal stuff, literally happened there. Like there'd be times when, we lived there for quite a while, and there'd be things that were on like the top shelves of things in like the kitchen, let's say, that were there and they didn't move for years. Nothing touched them, nothing could move them, and they'd go flying off the shelves. Just randomly, you'd be sitting there watching TV, and it's like, the heck was that?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then you find it, and like this, how did this fall down? It was so weird. And then it like kind of like leveled up over time too. It got kind of dark also. But the leveling kind of was like, I'd be on the second floor, and at first the second floor wasn't as active, but you would hear what, I think the TV was on. Oh, my mom's must be home, she's watching TV. And I'd go downstairs, the TV was off, and there's nobody home. And it's like, okay, well, that's bizarre. you know Other times, friends would come over, and like they wouldn't believe either, like they'd be staunch, like, no, ghosts aren't real, and they'd come over and they'd be like, I don't like it here, it feels weird, I don't like how this house feels, I don't like the energy or whatever, and they wouldn't come back. A friend of mine, one time, one of the reasons why he didn't come back is because at the time I lived with my brother and my sister. My sister had just had my niece, and she was in a crib. I was watching her for the night so my sister could do, I think, do homework or something. But she was at school anyway. So she was gone. It was just me and my niece, Jasmine. And she was in a crib. And I think I was in my room on the first floor because she was asleep. It was middle of the night. My friend came over, and he gets to my room and he goes, oh man, he's like, who was standing over Jasmine's crib? And I'm like, nobody should be standing over Jasmine's crib. So we bolted downstairs and she's just snoozing away and there's nobody around. Nothing. Another time, as I got into my, teen years, I was smoking cigarettes. So sometimes I would, a friend of mine we were playing, video games or whatever on the third floor in my room. I'd go downstairs, I'd be smoking a cigarette outside. He thought I was in the hallway in the dark, blocking his way to scare him. So he just saw the shadow figure in the middle of the hallway and he thought it was me. He goes, "Hey, dude, move." And the way he describes it to me is that it went like and where real quick, like whipped around the stairwell and then went downstairs. And then he looked out the downstairs door and he saw me smoking a cigarette. And he was like, "What was that?" So that's when like the shadow figure started popping up. Not too long into this activity going on, my sister moved out. We used her room to kind of put storage. It was just boxes, right? And so you couldn't even walk in there. You literally could not walk. You couldn't step foot in there. And you'd be in the living room and it would be right above you, her room. And you'd hear heavy footprints walking through her room back and forth. And it's like, geez, like what is happening? The worst thing, and I'll share this one with you, is the second floor started to become really active. Anytime I went to my room, it was like, a hallway and then kind of a half U shape and then stairs going up. So I would turn the corner to go up to the third floor and I would feel like something's trying to like grab me or, I don't know. It felt like in my spine, I could feel it just the sheer terror wash over me every time. So I would run like a bat out of hell into my room and just slam the door and just be like, okay, I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. Um, but on the second floor, this one individual night, um, there was a pull switch light outside the bathroom door, and in it there was a loop, but it was all wound in together. So I mean, you would really have to take some effort to open the loop. But I went into the bathroom. I was going to take a shower, and I was like, "Oh, I need a towel. Towels are downstairs on the first floor." The stairwell and this pull switch light were very close to each other. So I set my shoes down in front of the pull switch light. I go to walk downstairs, and it's around my neck, and I'm like, and it just at the time I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression. Had I not got my footing and I did strangle, people would have thought I had committed suicide. And
Wow.
like that's the most wild thing about it. But I did catch myself. And I even told my mom, and she again, she's not doesn't really believe in this stuff. And she laughed it off. She goes, "Oh no, you're full of it. Like that didn't happen the way you think it did." And I was like, I tried to recreate it and it didn't happen. Like that was something bad. It just was wild. My brother one time even, I hope I'm not like, going too much, but
No, no,
um,
no. Share away.
my brother lived so on the third floor was my room on one side, and then across the hall was my brother's room. His room was street side. There was one night where he came home and I heard him go into his room and then like that, like it's like he didn't even have time to go across, but he was in my room in his boxer shorts, shaking like a leaf. And all he kept saying was, "There's a ghost in my room. There's a ghost in my room. There's a ghost in my room." And so I finally calmed him down. I said, "Dude, what happened?" Well, he was rearranging his room. And so his bed was at an angle against the wall, right? So he went to go correct it and he heard someone go, "Hey," behind his ear. And then so he turns around thinking it's me and he's like, "What the heck?" And then it happened again as he turned around. And so he bolted. And it was like he said he could feel the breath on his ear. He heard it clear as a bell. And so 2 weeks later he moved out.
Wow.
For whatever reason, I thought it'd be cool. Like, oh, I get my brother's room now. you know, I moved into that room, and the first night, I kid you not, I woke up in the middle of the night and I look up and there was a man standing directly over me.
No.
And I just, oh man, and I
Nope.
screamed like a grown man shouldn't make. Like I
Yeah.
just hollered so loud, and it did end up going away. But things like that regularly happened at that house, and that's kind of why I was so interested in paranormal investigating, because like it's like kind of chasing the dragon. You know what I mean? I want to experience one to make sure that like I wasn't just imagining these things back then, because I know I wasn't, but just to see
Yeah.
it in other places and kind of get further validation of the spirit world around and things like that. So that's kind of my start into the paranormal.
Yeah, that I mean, how old was that house?
And that's the thing. Like I think it was built in the 70s. Like
It
it
wasn't
wasn't
even an
terribly
older,
old.
well, it could be the land, I suppose, but my question is, do you think that these were dark entities? I mean, they sound like they're not being very loving and peaceful, but do
Right.
you think that maybe you were attracting not bad anything bad, but do you think they might have been spirits that were recognizing you as you had your light on in a sense without realizing it, and they might have been actually not necessarily nefarious, but just sort of spirits going, "Hey, you could see me," or did you feel? Was there some history? I also would love. I also wonder about the history of the house, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you delved into that.
So like I said, the history of the house, it's a three-story duplex in Portland, Maine. It's right off of Ocean Ave in Maine. And again, it's in in a semi-suburban area.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I think it was built in the 70s or something like that. One thing I do know is that we did have a neighbor that lived across from us, and I found this out, and I'm not sure if this was him there or not, but he had passed away, but he hated kids, hated them, like
Oh,
flat out. And so I'm wondering if like he was the more nefarious kind of energy because he's
yeah.
like, you effing kids, like I can't stand you. And so, oh, can I swear on this podcast?
You can. It's fine.
Okay. I'm not
Thank
going
you
to be
for
dropping
asking.
F-bombs every now and again, but
No, I know, just for the algorithm, but yeah, I'm okay with it. Thank you for
I'll keep
asking.
it to
Yeah, me
little
too.
to none. Yeah.
Just, yeah, because it asks if there's profanity, and I'll just be like, some, but sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. Thank you for asking. But yeah, I do.
Absolutely.
I mean, it could, because when I even just feeling into it, I was thinking I didn't feel like it was some like seriously, seriously dark, scary thing as much
Yeah,
as
no.
like trickster, or as you said, perhaps the neighbor that was just a grumpy man in life.
Yeah.
And because a lot of paranormal investigation is quite different from what we do, although we can use what we do in that kind of work.
Right.
And in fact,
Yep.
a lot of the paranormal shows I don't like just because they're sort of dark, and a lot of them are. It's not that things don't happen; it's that they're contrived for TV because something
Right.
has to happen
Yeah.
because it's TV. And so I don't resonate always with the sort of jump scares and stuff
Yeah.
and the sensationalism of them. And yet, I do have a strong interest in learning more about the paranormal from a historical standpoint and also understanding what is really going on when we have things like hauntings
Right.
versus just your grandma's there, your grandma's there, and cabinets might be slamming, but they're not trying to scare you, they're trying to get your attention.
Right.
And I'd love to hear what you've kind of learned in your research about why some places have this residual energy. And personally, thank God I've never experienced any kind of lower density spirit before. But anything you'd like to share that's not a specifically a question as much as just wanting to know what you've kind of come to in your research of both, because to me, what we do, mediumship, love, light, healing, it's all good, it's all
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And then you've got these weird creepy places that have kind of some dark energy happening in there.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you'd like to say about that?
Absolutely. And I think that as long as we give any of those energies love and we maintain who we are as, just solid and caring and unconditional people,
Yeah,
I think that they can coexist, you
I
know.
do too.
And if there are spirits, which some aren't, I've had a shadow figure follow me home, and I believe that they are drawn to fear, anxiety, the heavier emotions that humans experience. And to them, it's not what I feel like it is they don't know it's wrong because that's just natural for them, you know? So I had a shadow figure follow me home. I woke up, it was at the end of my bed. And this was when I was adult. I mean, this was not too terribly long ago, a couple, 4 or 5 years or something. And I at first obviously was scared and I
Yeah.
was, freaked out. But then I was like, no, 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 wait. It doesn't vibe with love and it wants fear and anxiety. So
Yeah.
I flipped the script on it a little bit. I said, thank you so much for following me home. I was like, you are the greatest. I love you so much. Like, I can't believe you were so kind enough to make sure that I was sleeping okay, getting a good night's rest. And it literally recoiled. It was like, and then it left. Maybe not the whole like thing, but like it did. It was gone, and I have not seen it since. And it's opposite end of a battery type of deal. It's not that it's innately wrong or bad. It just that's how it lives. That's how it survives. And I think if people understand those types of things, with some maybe, with shadow figures, I don't know if it's like, with loved ones, they have been incarnate at some time. With these shadow figures, I don't know if they were ever incarnate, and maybe they just take on this image to create fear and anxiety in people because they know that's what they can draw from us. You know?
Yeah, I know. It goes
Um,
so deep when I start to think about it, but I I've done that. I have a neighbor who's a medium. She
Yeah.
told, and this house is 1927 Old Hollywood
Oh
Hills,
wow.
uh, Laurel Canyon house with. There's no historical record about this, but I immediately felt spirit when I came in, and so did the family that owns the house. Told me, oh yeah, for 40 years we've had that same spirit. I've seen a shadow, but it's all I don't feel scared at all. I feel very
Oh
loving
good.
in this house. It has a beautiful energy.
Yep.
And when I came in, I said, "Hi, I want to introduce myself. I want to make friends with you all. Whoever's here, feel free to not show yourself in physical form unless it's daytime." But my neighbor said there is a spirit in I'm in a recording studio. It's actually in a cave. And she said there's a guy that sits there that's a heroin addict and he's in the corner and he's dark energy. And
Hmm.
apparently she said, I can see him every time when I've come in your house. I can see him sitting there. Now, I haven't seen him, but what I did is came in recently, had some sage just for good measure. And I said, hey, I have love for you. I want us to coexist together. I don't know if you're a residual energy or if you're stuck here. I don't really know how that works. I still don't. I still don't know if I believe in stuck spirits. I just haven't had
Yeah. Yeah.
it doesn't resonate for me, but I'm not saying I know everything.
That's kind of where I'm at. I don't
Yeah,
believe, I don't claim to know everything or anything, but it does not like being stuck or earthbound does not feel right to me.
same. I'm glad we're on that page together. I
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
feel we need to help them go. I don't think they're
No.
stuck. I think they are here because it was significant to them, or there's some kind
Right.
of an energy imprint. Maybe it's a sort of a hologram situation that we've created. I don't know. But I talked to him and said, I love you. I want the best for you. I wish you peace. I've never felt scared of him. I feel like I know he's here
Right.
and I stay up and I stay light. And if I feel any kind of that tingle, I say, hi. I wish you love. And I've never been haunted. So
Right.
I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I don't mess with that stuff. I don't go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't go
No,
there.
I don't blame you. And there are some places that I've gone to where it is incredibly dark,
Yeah.
but I always maintain that like I'll ask my spirit guides to kind of watch over me. I'll ask my loved ones like because I'm like, you guys are on the spiritual side, they are on the spiritual side, and I know that you'll protect me. Like I know that you guys know what to do. Like, and that's part of what I have tried to learn as far as the trust goes with all this stuff, because I'm sure you can attest trusting ourselves and just spirit in general when we don't have a background with it is unbelievably difficult.
Yeah.
I still sometimes second guess myself, although lately there has been a string of readings that I've done where it's like there's no way, there is no possible way that one I wondered at one time if I was just reading thoughts and I wasn't
Yeah. I've wondered
genuinely.
that too.
Yeah, if like maybe I'm not a medium, I'm just a really good psychic or something, and then I had an experience and it blew the lid off my mind as far as that. And it proved to me that spirit is intelligent independently and we're not picking up on thoughts. There was a woman's father who came to me during a private reading, and he kept saying, "I please tell her I know she still has my wallet, and there's money in there and there's a message for her." And she's like, well, she goes, yeah, I know about the wallet. She goes, I do have that. She's like, but I've checked it 1,000 times and there's no money whatsoever and there's no message. And I was like, well, here's the thing. Just keep it in the back of your mind. Because that's what I usually say if something doesn't resonate. Keep it in the
Same.
back of your mind. And if it comes up later on, then you can validate it in that moment, right? So I teach classes in Augusta, Maine on mediumship. And she came to one 2 weeks later and she brought the wallet with her. And she goes, I just want you to know, I checked the wallet again on just because of what you said, my dad said. And she goes, in a little sliver that I never saw before, I pulled out three $2 bills. And then she goes, on my birthday, I was lamenting really hard about my dad's passing. Her birthday was February 22nd. So 222, three $2 bills. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like I got emotional. I almost cried when she said that because I'm like, that is incredible, you know?
That is incredible. And I'm glad you said this because for people who don't do this work, I teach too because I love this. It's so cool. How did you know? Like when you're
Right.
doing a reading, how do you, Christopher, perceive? How do I know what he's trying to say? And
Right.
how did you know what it meant and what was the wallet? Explain that. I know we all see it differently, but I'd love to know your
Sure.
experience of that.
So it's interesting. Like, I mean, I think we all use the clairs, the clairvoyance,
Yeah.
which is clear seeing, clear audience, hearing. For me, I'm very clairaudient if I'm to really think about it.
Hmm.
So, but in this scenario, I kind of saw the brownish leather wallet in my head, but it's kind of like I'm interpreting a daydream in a way. It's like I'm just kind of sitting there and drifting off, but it's not my daydream, you know? And it's so hard to make the distinction, but it's also like when I go into a reading, I have to shift my awareness over to that side of stuff. I kind of check out in a way. And in the very beginning, when I was doing some of those like Facebook readings or whatever, and even the ones in person, I thought that I had to be like, running on no 2 hours of sleep and no caffeine and just completely exhausted mentally to allow that to come in, right? Because
Yeah.
mediumship's receiving that energy, and I'm very like ADHD. My mind is
Hmm.
going a
Me
thousand miles
too.
a minute at any given time. So I'm sure that it was probably in the beginning before I learned how to, do it all the time. As my body's way of just being like, yeah, no, this is what it feels like. This is what it needs to feel like.
Right. And that's part of the practice, right? As we start to
Yeah.
know what it feels like, because as you said, it can be so subtle.
Yeah.
It's not like before I did this work, I bet you had the same experience. I thought, like I would imagine it was so much more dramatic. Like you
Yeah.
saw spirit, right? I've never seen spirit with my eyes. But it's like all the shows make you feel like it's going to be like the sixth sense, where
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
see someone and they're talking to me and they're giving me,
Right.
it's not even that. It's just sort
Yeah.
of like being still and listening to your own thoughts.
Hmm.
And then they feel like kind of scrambled and weird, but you just say them and then somebody's like, that's exactly right. And you're like,
Right.
what? I just thought that was my thought. And so
Right.
sometimes I don't know exactly, and that's the practice that we've done for 10
Right.
years, or for me it's been 7. It's like the more you practice, the better you get at discerning what's mine and what's theirs. What would you
Right.
say is the best way to discern between what's mine and what's spirit?
That's a great question. Geez, I should know the answer to this, but you know,
It's not a black or white thing.
yeah, the discernment for me is it's because of I'm sure you've heard of sitting in the power.
Yep.
Have you heard of that term? Yeah.
Explain
So
it though to the people who don't know.
for anybody who doesn't know, it's very much a, when you just what I do is I kind of it's a more of like a meditation. And what I say to myself is a mantra of sitting with the love and the power of spirit. And I don't put any expectations. I'm not expecting to get any messages or to see or feel or to know anything. I just want to know what it feels like to let them blend with my energy. And then once that is recognized, then the information following, I can say, oh, okay, well, I know what it's like for them to blend with me. So now that they're blended, and I hear this stuff coming from the clairs that I use, it's more them, and that's the feeling, and that's that shifting of awareness for me. And I have my things now with private readings or even public readings where I will say, all right, um, I'll just ask you to take a nice deep breath with me, and then we'll get started. And when I take that deep breath, it's like going from Chris to them. you know it's like that's when I shift over, and it's like, okay, now I'm not in Christopher mode, I'm in reading mode. And it's taken me a long time to get there, but sitting in the power had certainly in the beginning helped me with that, doing that over and over again, just understanding and being comfortable with the energy that is spirit you know and I always kind of attribute it to this: it's a language. It is a different language. Now if I said to somebody who has never spoken a lick of Spanish, let's say, I put them in the middle of a predominantly Spanish speaking restaurant and said, all right, you cannot speak English and neither can they. Now, after the first day, they'd be like, I don't even know what is happening. I have no clue what's going on. I don't know what anybody said. After a week, they might start to pick up on little phrases or keywords. After maybe a year, they're going to maybe know a small sentence. And then after 5 years, they might even be fluent because of all the constant exposure to being around that language. Even if you had no former training, you pick it up through osmosis almost. And I've heard of
That
so
is
many people that they say that they're like, oh, I lived in Japan, but I didn't speak Japanese. And then, I lived there for 6 years. By the time I left, I was fluent, not from a textbook, but because of exposure. It's the same thing with spirit, I think.
exactly. That is so, I love the way you described it. It is almost by osmosis.
Yeah.
And the only way you know if you're right is if somebody tells you, yes, you're right. At
Well, and
least
that's
for
the other
me.
thing.
I mean, I know
Yep.
there are mediums that are stronger at this because they were born doing this since they were like a child, maybe.
Right.
And maybe they've honed it in a different way. But for me, the only way I learned if I was how it feels is whether I was right or wrong. So I gave
Yeah.
free readings for 2 years. First, I
Yeah.
took classes, so I knew the fundamentals, did some practice circles, did some.
Yeah.
Did you do all that too? Like this, did you do circles or all that?
Oh yeah. No, I would definitely before I got into this or as I was developing this as well, just sit with other people and it was established that we were just going to read each other for practice.
Yeah.
Um, and just doing that over and over and over again, and then like you said, when somebody confirms something, when somebody validates something during a reading, I have this saying that I say all the time, mediumship without validation is just your imagination, because how are you supposed to know if you cannot validate it? That's part of the things that I talk about on my YouTube channel is like, if you can't get a yes from this and it doesn't make sense, one, don't dig into it because it could be like maybe the wallet scenario that I talked about earlier, or two, like, maybe you're wrong and that's okay too. No medium on the planet, in my opinion, is going to be 100% every time. And if they say that they are, that's an ego thing, in my opinion, right? Um, there are this human error. Even the most fluent linguists of the language of Mandarin Chinese are going to make mistakes, and so can we, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing, But like, if I did a private reading for somebody and 80% of the information that I gave them was accurate and validated, I mean, that's pretty good to me, right? I mean, obviously we shoot for the stars and we want more than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's important, especially for some skeptics. You could get somebody's full social security number and their last passing words, but if you get their eye color wrong, you are full of it, you know?
Exactly. It's confirmation bias. I talk about
Yeah.
that too. That I don't actually want to read for skeptics unless they're like, I'm a skeptic, but I'm open minded and I'm just
Yeah.
curious, and I'm not here to criticize you
Right.
or call you out on anything. Because then I get what happens is then if someone comes to challenge us, we get in our head, we start to
Hmm.
feel insecure, we start
Yep.
to doubt ourselves, we start to get scared about what are they going to think, and then you've lost connection with spirit. So
Exactly.
it's important that uh, we can feel comfortable and you can feel and you have to be open
Yeah.
because it's a three. I always say it's like a game of charades. Like it's you, me, and your spirit guides. We're
Yeah.
going to play a game of charades together. They're going to give me a symbol. I'm going to give you the symbol. You're going to tell me what the symbol means, and there we go. But
Yep.
if it's somebody skeptical, I have often looked at my readings back and I've been like, well, if someone was a skeptic, I could see how they could be like, well, that was, she put that together, but
Yeah.
then we've talked, I mean, this is what you just said. That's why we are evidential
Yes.
because anyone can say your mother's in spirit and she loves you. Well, my mother was
Correct.
abusive. She still loves you, which is a true fact, right?
Right.
But for us to be able to get names, dates, places, and we don't always get them.
No. Yeah.
But I've gotten first and last names of people I have never met the person sitting in front of me.
Hmm.
There is no way. I've gotten weird dog names that I'm like, what
Yeah.
is this name? And I'll say this weird word. They're like, that's the dog's name. Like, I can't make that up and be right.
Right.
That's just not, I can't read your body language.
Right. Especially when we're doing phone readings. I think that's a
Oh, yeah.
wicked, like a huge, thing that I think people misunderstand or don't realize. They're like, well, why don't you, do it without facial cues? Well, we do it all the time. It's called the phone reading, and I
Yeah.
don't see the other person on the other end, and they're literally validating this stuff. And it's like, and I agree with you about the skeptic thing. Sometimes if they're scowling and they're meh, it throws things off. It throws the vibe off. It makes us second guess or question what we're getting. I personally don't want to know someone's a skeptic.
I don't either.
Like, I like tell me after, and I'm
Tell
I'm
me
okay
after.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's been times at gallery readings where you can kind of tell. I mean, there was a group reading I did not too far from my house, and this was a few years back, but there was a big old gentleman there. He was a big burly guy, and he had his arms folded and he had sunglasses on. And now this was like 7:30. It was winter. Like there was no need for sunglasses in the house, you know? And
Right.
so he's just looking all menacing and stuff. And I kid you not, the second person I brought through, I was like, can anybody understand that? Raise your hand. And he's like, God, boom. He raises his hand. And I was like, how much of that made sense for you, sir? And he's like, all of it.
I
And
love
then I
that.
proceeded to give him the reading. And he comes up to me afterwards. He goes, he's like, I was here to debunk you, man. He's like, I was here to make sure that you are full of nonsense and that you are not what you say you are. And he goes, and I don't know how you would have known about my best friend. I brought his best friend through and
Oh,
said all this crazy evidential and validating stuff. And I was like, well, are you still a skeptic? And he's like, I don't really know. And I was like, hey, I'll take it.
yeah. I always say it's okay to be skeptical. We were.
Yeah, I encourage it.
I do too. You should ask questions. And,
Yes.
I've even wondered, like you said, I get a lot of very specific things. I read pretty much like, I notice when I watch other mediums, oh yeah, that's how I read.
Yeah,
I love watching other people read,
me too.
but I tend to be really, for me, I love to get names and I
Yeah.
like to get weird references that there's no way I could know, which we all do, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
But then I've had people like other mediums go, it feels like you're doing psychic work. And I'm like, because I know all the things that happened in their day. Like, I'll be like, first
Oh
you
yeah.
did this, then you did this, then you did this. However, what I've said is, here's how I know the difference. And I'd love to hear what's for you. If I feel spirit with me, for me, when they're showing me things that happened during the day, every reading I do, it's because they're saying I was there and I was there with you. So I feel
Thank you.
confident saying, like I did a reading recently, I said, they're talking about this alarm that keeps going off. And he's like, oh my God, our fire alarm has been going off. And like, we've changed the batteries and we don't know what it is. And I'm like, that is, well, first of all, that was the spirit doing that. But then I said something like, your vacuum cleaner needs to be fixed. And she's like, yeah. Now someone could go, well, that's just a psychic thing. But I'm like, no, it's your mom saying, she
Yeah.
knows everything. Like, she knows your vacuum cleaner needs to be fixed. She's telling me, go make sure you change the oil, make
Yeah.
sure you do all these little banal things. And the way that I know is I feel it. My dad said to me, my dad's always been super agnostic. I mean, I thought he was an atheist.
Oh wow. Yeah.
He's like, I'm not an atheist. I'm just a deist. Like, he's an extremely logical guy,
Yeah.
boomer guy, works in business, not
Yeah. Right.
spiritual, any way, shape, or form. But he goes, well, once I started doing it, he said, well, but okay, so how do you know you're not just reading minds? And
Yeah.
I said, well, even if that was it, isn't that cool? But I said,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I think to some degree I am reading minds in some cases when we're
Sure.
doing psychic work.
Hmm.
But the way I know is I feel spirit. I
Yeah.
feel the density of them. I
Yeah.
feel tingles that start at the crown of my head and go all the way down my leg or my arm. Often it's I'm out in public and I'll just feel it on my thigh for some reason. I'd like to
Okay.
know how you how do you know when you're connected with spirit versus I'm just picking this up psychically?
That's a great question too. For me, it's much like kind of you described. It's a feeling as opposed to like psychic work. When I do psychic work, at least for me personally, it doesn't feel. I don't feel that overwhelming sense of unconditional love. I don't feel that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I do feel some kind of anxiety in my solar plexus. I think that just kind of goes along with it because of the energy that is required to do either one. But I also there's no mention of a loved one at all, or there's no message in my head that leads me to I was watching when you did this. And usually they'll kind of make that pretty clear to me, like with mediumship. It's like I have this person coming through. I mean, they show me themselves instantly. With the psychic stuff, there's none of that. Nobody presents themselves to me on a spiritual level. I can't feel that blending of energy like on a spiritual level, that deep emotional, just powerful, like loving kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And psychic work can also be loving as well, but I think it's more knowledge than emotion and knowledge, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I know what I've heard is all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. And I don't know if I
Eh,
even believe that because I
I don't
don't,
either.
yeah, like yeah, I just,
Well, and I think that's foolish to say. If like you can't be, all these mediums can be psychics, but if you're a psychic,
you can't
forget
be,
about it.
yeah,
Like it doesn't check with me. Like I honestly think it's our God-given right to be both. And when someone says, I think, like John Holland, when we talked about him earlier about everybody being a medium, I think that's true. I think if we as mediums only provide validation from a complete stranger, what you already know. That's it. And we are also giving you messages from them because they are giving it to us, which is a very comforting thing as well. You know, it's just wild to me when someone's like, you can't be a medium, and unless you want to talk to your loved ones, you got to come to me. Like, come on, get out of here with
Yeah.
that. Like, I can't even, like, your ego's through the roof. And then I honestly think that ego is the death of mediumship. It just kills it so hard because you got to be able to let go of stuff, and you got to not be interjecting your own thoughts and biases and stuff. It's rough, and even when you're triggered in your own life about what's coming through, because there's a lot of sensitive information that can come through, you can't insert what you think into that whole equation because it's not about you. You got to be able to give that message clear and clean without any of your stuff interfering with that.
So well said. Every
Thank you.
mediumship reading I do, I say that very thing. Please let me take my ego out of this. This is
Yeah,
not about me. I asked to be of service to the spirit world and to the person in front of me. Just let me be a vessel and let my ego
exactly.
stay out of it, because the ego does get involved. And that doesn't mean that we're like, I think I'm so great. It's the
No,
ego in the sense of, in, actually in a self-deprecating way. What if I
right?
can't do this right? What if it's not good? What if I
Yeah,
don't do a good job? And then I remind myself, I do not have to do anything, because the harder I try, the worse the reading's going to be.
absolutely. Yep, I agree. I think if we get in the way, we are analytical as human beings. And the more we analyze the information that's coming through, we've already lost it. You know,
Yeah.
in my students, when I teach them, I give them this scenario. I say, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'll do this with you too. I'm going to ask you a question, and you give me the first answer that comes to mind. Don't even hesitate. Don't even think about it. Okay. What's 1 plus 1?
Two.
Took you all but a millisecond to figure that out, right? That's the spiritual energy and messages coming through. Anything after that is us trying to figure it out, right? So if you get an orange pop into your head and then you're like, orange crush, orange soda, were they from Florida, yada, yada, then you've already lost it. You could just say, hey, someone's showing me an orange. Does that make sense to you? And they're like, oh my God, I just had one yesterday. Well, your dad knows about it. It's like things like that. You know what I mean? Like, at least that's how I interpret it.
Exactly. And I still sometimes get into that. Is it Florida?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it orange juice? Is it orange crush? Wait, is it high C?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
literally, you and I work so much the same. I say the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Don't stop to think, go. That's why
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
started doing group readings. I'm actually
yeah.
better at that. I was terrified the first time I had to do one, but someone
Same.
asked me. Really, I was going to ask, I wanted to hear this from you. Someone asked me, "What would you do a group reading for us?" And I was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
I had been like, "Never. I'm not getting up there. What if I flop?"
Yeah.
But I knew spirit was offering me something. And it was like this woman at a med spa, and she's like, "I would love for you to do this for the women. I'm not paying you, but it would be great for you to exposure." And I was like, "Actually, it's great practice." It was the best reading I ever did in my life. I walked in there terrified, and I want to hear your experience. But I think why it works so well is because you don't have time to think. You
Yeah.
better just go. There are people staring at you. I just did one last weekend. I woke up
Yeah.
that morning. I don't want to do it. It was only my third one ever. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm good. What if it's terrible? What if I make a fool of myself? What if it's
Oh, yeah.
flop? And I went, and 16 people showed up, and everyone got a reading, and it
That's
was
awesome.
fire. And it was because I was in doubt, human doubting and I get up there and I'm like, you gotta, girl, you gotta lead. You gotta get up there, and you can't show insecurity. So you say,
Right.
hello, everyone, welcome to the, and I'm so excited we're gonna do this together. And then before you know it, Spirit was already talking in my ear, and I'm like, I'm not even done with my spiel, and I'm already getting messages. And
Yeah.
then it goes and it flows, and you're not sitting there going, oh God, well, what if, well, I don't know. You just have to be like, deliver it with confidence, and that's why it works. So
Yes.
I always tell people, and I've tried it on podcasts, I've said to people that are not practicing mediums, what's the
Right.
first thing that pops into your head right now? And,
Oh, yeah.
and actually, let's do that. Okay, so what's the first thing that pops into your head right now?
Dolphins.
Okay. And I don't know if that means anything yet, but it could, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I did that exercise on another podcast. It was a couple. I said, I'm going to teach you how to do mediumship right now. And look, I bet you anything dolphins will come up too. But I said, but also maybe, there was no one there. I said to them, here's how you do it. I said to the wife, tell me right now, what's the first thing? She said, a yellow rubber ducky. I said, that is a sign from my friend Derek on the other side. He shows me yellow rubber duckies as a sign. So you
That's
just did
awesome.
mediumship. And she was like, what? I'm
Yeah.
like, it's that easy. And
It
maybe
is.
dolphins, I do have a friend, like that might come up.
Right.
And so so that's what it is. But I'd love to hear about your group reading. I was actually going to ask that, like, what kind of brought you into reading gallery style, and how did it go for you? Because it feels like you're jumping off a cliff
Oh my God.
into, like, I don't even know what the hell is about to happen right now.
Yeah.
But like, I
Yeah.
want to hear your experience.
For me, the first gallery reading I did was at a spiritualist church. They were like there was going to be a panel of different mediums, so there was four of us all together, and we were each going to take turns. For me, when I was doing those, I was already doing readings for maybe a year or two, but it was like I had been swimming in the kiddie pool, and then they were like, "Hey, we're going to kick you into the Bering Sea with no life preserver." I'm like,
Totally.
"Cool, this is great." Like,
Yeah.
but I went into it, and it was like so. Sure enough, they all went, and they knew it was my first time doing a gallery, so they all went first, and it was super kind of them. And then it was my turn. And I stood up, and like you said, I mean, you got to just go with it. I mean, you have no time. I mean, you have to. Something's got to happen. And so what I tried to do is I sat in the power until it was my turn. Kept saying that mantra: sit with the love and the power of spirit, without any expectations of a message. But I stood up. I felt the gentleman come through. I pointed to a guy. I said, like, I feel a drawn to you. And I was like, your dad's coming through. He says his name is Tim. And he says he's been with you your whole life, but something feels weird. He says he's not your family. He goes, oh my God. He's like, my stepdad's name is Tim. He's been with me since I was 2 years old. And he just passed like 2 months ago. And I was like, and I felt it from my crown chakra to my feet. It was like, vroom, like somebody, I don't know, it was the weirdest electrical like shock through my body. As soon as he said Tim, I was like zoink, like I felt it. And the guy validated, and I just was like, oh my God, like holy cow. And I honestly like I really loved that feeling and that energy. You know what I mean? Being somebody who has experienced an incredible amount of trauma in my life, not feeling that is incredible.
Mm.
And as a matter of fact, when I do readings, like if I have a book day and I'm reading for like 5 hours, I'm like, sweet, that's 5 hours that I don't have to torture myself in here. It
Yep.
sounds terrible, but like, or that I don't have to deal with the ADHD brain. You know,
Hmm.
I can just check out, and it's almost like going to the spa for the day for me. It's like I can just relax and just feel love and pass on these awesome messages. And it's delightful. But with the gallery readings, yeah, it's terrifying to this day. Still, it doesn't matter if it's 5 people or if it was 300. Like I get terrified every time before I go in.
Me
Um,
too.
yeah, it does, and it's wild. Like I don't know what it is, and people are like, "Oh, well, does it matter if it's 300 or if it's 30?" And I was like, "No."
No, it would
Every
be the
single
same.
private reading I do, every single gallery reading, people are like, "How you feeling? You got this. We know we've seen you do this," and I'm like, "I don't got this. I
I
don't
know.
got this. I'm freaking out."
That's such a good thing to share, because I think sometimes people look at us like we have all the answers.
Oh,
Or they'll go, God, I wish I could do what you do. Don't you have clients be like, you're so gifted, and you're like, it's nice, but it, I'm not any more gifted than they are. And sometimes they'll
correct.
ask me like, well, tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm like, listen, I am not like, I am a
Yeah.
human being, and I will tell you what I feel.
Yes.
But I also will tell you, I always say I'm fallible, and every good medium is only 75% accurate. I start every reading with, I might be wrong. Like
Yep.
there's a chance I could be wrong, so don't hang on every word.
I
Take
love
what
that.
resonates. You're going to know that I'm connecting, because you're going to get things that I couldn't
Right.
possibly know. And then
Yep.
some things might be my own thought.
Right.
And so I love that you said that, because I think sometimes people put us on a pedestal, mediums on a pedestal, not, I don't want to
Yeah.
say me, but because they
No, I
look
know what
up,
you
because
mean.
it's so magical what we're doing.
Right.
And they're
It's
like,
like, as a
yeah,
guitar player, I remember looking at like Eddie Van Halen and being like, "Oh my God, that's incredible." And
yeah,
I've been playing for almost 30 years and I still can't play Van Halen, but
right.
you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of a thing. It's like, however, had I, 20 years ago of my guitar playing, sat down and really hammered down those songs, by now I could play them. Probably not as
Absolutely.
well as Eddie, and I never would be as well as Eddie, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that's the same with mediumship too. Anybody can do this if they dive in and they want to do the work. Anybody can be a doctor, but it takes decades to hone in on certain things. Anybody could be a Freemason or a Mason, rather, not a Freemason, or they could be a Freemason too.
Yeah,
But
they could be a
yeah,
Mason who's a
you
Freemason.
can literally do anything you want to do. It does not matter. It's just how bad do you want it? And it's the same thing with mediumship, you know? And it's funny you said earlier about how you're like, I am just the vessel and all that, like setting the ego aside. I tell people all the time, like, we don't ever often like or glorifying mediums. Like, say this is my phone, right? It's not like after a phone call with a loved one, I go, you know what, phone, you're the best.
Yeah.
You did such a good job. Oh my God, I idolize my phone. Because it's just the in between. And that's what we are as mediums. We are just the in between. We're just the phone. It's nothing special. He's been around a long time now. you know
We are just delivering the mail.
that's right.
That's what I tell people is I don't have control over what they tell me.
Well, that's
So
the other thing too. Yeah.
that's the other thing, right? There's sometimes when people are like, either sometimes it's a skeptic and sometimes it's just somebody wanting to know. A skeptic might say, if you're so good, what year was my born? What did my mother say to me before she died? Sometimes I get it, but but not always, because
Right.
that's not necessarily what the message is.
Right.
And also, haven't you had clients say, it's okay if you don't get it, but just want to know, I did ask her
Yeah.
to tell me a certain something. I'd love you to speak to that, either if it's happened in really cool ways or whatever you feel about when people ask you specific questions like,
Okay.
okay,
So as far
what's
as
the
people
thing
saying,
that's hidden in the top drawer of,
oh
sometimes
yeah,
they'll
yeah, what are the
yeah,
deepest, darkest secrets of my life? And that's the funny thing is like sometimes there will things that'll naturally come up, and it'll be unbelievably validating and sometimes really awkward. That's part of how I kind of fell into the whole unfiltered mediumship thing, because I started at galleries not filtering myself, and like some really sometimes inappropriate and bizarre things would come through, but it was validating. And I remember I was it was a place called the Augusta Civic Center, and I was doing an event with a friend of mine named Scott Allen. It was in front of 330 people, and there was a gentleman's friend who came through, and he started telling me this really embarrassing story about them being in gym class. And I won't get too deep or explain exactly what it was, but I'll give you enough for you to get the picture. He said he was wearing the tight little gym shorts, and something embarrassing happened where something was exposed, and his friends were laughing about it. You know, and so I'm hearing this in front of all these people, and his buddy's like, tell him, tell him, tell him. I'm like, no way. Like, that is unbelievably not cool and inappropriate. And like, how is that even a message? And like, I'm second guessing it. And so finally I was like, sir, are you open to everything? I was like, everybody, are you cool with it if I just blurt it out? So everyone's like, yeah, just blurt it out. So I said, yeah, your buddy. And he mentioned this. And, when we're off the Zoom call, I can fill you in on exactly what it was. But
yeah,
for, you know, to be PC about it, he confirmed it. He goes, yeah, 100%. He goes, if there was ever a shadow of a doubt in my mind, he goes, then that erased it. Cause he goes, that was my buddy's sense of humor, for one. That happened to all of us in school. There was a whole group of them that thought it was hilarious. And that was his buddy. You know what I mean? It was just unreal. During that same event, there was like, sometimes, I don't know about you, but do you ever get messages beforehand, before a
yeah,
gallery?
yes,
Right? So sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. This in particular time at the Augusta Civic Center, it was the same night. On my way there, there's a chocolate shop and metaphysical shop near me that I have an office at that I do private readings. It's not owned by me, but there's a gentleman named David and Bishop that own a place called Merkaba Soul, right? Awesome metaphysical shop. They also have like a ton of chocolates that you can choose from, which is super cool. So needless to say, there was a gentleman who came through. He said, look, my wife's going to be in the crowd tonight. And I heard this clairaudiently. He goes, my wife's going to be in the crowd tonight. He goes, and you need to get her a box of chocolates from me. He goes, that's a sign. She asked me to, or I asked her to marry me with a ring and a box of chocolates. And I said, I'm like, ah. And he kept nagging me all the way there. And so I finally, like, before I turned, I could have either taken a right to the Civic Center or a left to the Merkaba Soul. So I took a left on a whim. I went in. I said, look, guys, I got a gallery tonight. I need a box of chocolates. This is the message. And, hey, worst case scenario, if I'm wrong, I get some chocolates at the
yeah.
end of the night. And so I set it off the stage. And like 3 or 4 people in, I start describing this gentleman. The woman raises her hand. And I said, ma'am, I was like, would it make sense to you for him to say that he proposed to you with a box of chocolates? She goes, yeah, that happened. That was how he did it. And so I said, well, he wanted me to give you this. And so I went and got her the chocolates. And I think all the air was sucked out of the room. And even I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like this. And again, I'm like full of goosebumps, you know. And so I gave her the box of chocolates, and it was amazing. And like I gave her a big hug, and it was a beautiful
Oh.
moment. And it was just like, dude, thank you so much for coming through in that way. Because like, one, she needed that so much, you know, not just the message, but like the whole thing. And it just, I don't know, I was unbelievably grateful in a way because I didn't let that be filtered at all either. I just let it go, and I let what spirit drew me to do. And it was just crazy. It was unreal. I'll never forget that.
Thank you for sharing that story. That is so cool. I've recently started looking out for things like that. Like I go to Goodwill a lot and I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, Spirit, if you want me to get something for someone, let me know. It hasn't happened yet, but I've heard this from other mediums. Like
Yeah.
something told me to pick this thing up, and then I had the
Yeah.
reading and it was for that person. Or,
Yeah.
and I've really started to notice those things. It's so fascinating. And the other day I was at the beach with a friend. I'm sitting there and I just knew his dad was there.
Yeah.
And I can't explain. Well, I can't explain it. It just felt like a tingle. It just felt like a tingle.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I think his dad's here, but I need it. I need you to. So I said, tell me what I need to say. And he goes, Fruit Loops. I'm like, I just turned to him. I'm like, I think your dad's here. Does Fruit Loops mean anything to you? He goes, yeah. Every time I eat Fruit Loops, I think of my dad.
No,
He's like, I
that's,
said, why? He goes, because he used to eat them all the time. Like he just used to eat them
oh,
sometimes. And so I always think of him. And I was like, he goes, thank you. So like a reading doesn't even have to be like he said that he left the money in the top drawer, or he
right.
loves you, he's so proud of you. A lot of times it's just that. It's just
Hmm.
needing to know that they're there.
Yeah.
And even before my last gallery reading a few weeks ago, a couple weekends ago, I showed up and there was a man there I didn't know. I saw him checking in. I'm like, oh, there's someone I don't even know here. And someone had brought him. And so I walked up to him. I said, you're here for the reading. How did you hear about me or whatever? And then I said, just before we start, is your dad on the other side and did he have dementia? He goes,
Wow.
my dad is here, but he has dementia. And he's in the
Oh,
fight. He goes, that's why I'm here, because I came
okay.
from New Jersey. And I said, I just want to tell you, even though I know he looks so agitated, his soul is at peace. Like he is 1 foot on the other side. So even though it's hard to watch, just know that he's not really suffering like he look as
Oh
the way he
man.
looks like he is. And he goes, you know what? I don't even need to walk in the room. He goes, you just literally, that's it. That's all I
Oh
needed.
wow.
And he did
That's
come in.
great.
And then I read him more when we got in the
Yeah.
room. But it was like sometimes you just need to know they're there.
Yeah.
Sometimes
That's
there
beautiful.
isn't an overlying message. Sometimes it isn't this big sweeping, I was never the father I needed to be. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hi,
Yeah.
what
Hey, I'm
bike
here.
lock. Like I just heard bike lock. I don't know if that means anything to you, but that just came
What
into
is it? What did you say again?
bike lock.
Bike lock.
Does that mean anything to you? I
Is that
always
is
just
actually very interesting to me.
what does bike lock mean to you? Because I just
So
heard it.
I just recently got a brand new guitar case. And there's a spot that you can put those like little bike locks. And I literally was just like, oh, I should get those for this thing. Literally tonight
I
before the podcast. That's wild.
I probably just I could have read this as an example. Did I read your mind? Or was it a father on the other side? Do you know, like do you
Well,
have a
and it's also interesting you say that because there's definitely a gentleman on the other side that I connect more to on a father level. Now it wasn't my blood, but
right? Was he a
and he was
stepfather
a
or
guitar
something?
player, so
Okay, I was gonna say, was he a stepfather? He felt more like a stepfather, but maybe that's because you said
he
he's
would
like a
have been on
father
that level.
figure.
He always wanted to marry my mom. He was engaged to my mom when we were younger. So
This
yeah,
makes
that checks out.
total sense because I heard bike lock and then I said, "Who's giving me that?" And I got like stepdaddy kind of
Yeah.
feelings. And so that would be him. His name's not Mike, is it?
Mike, no, although he would be around a Mike in spirit as well.
He would. Okay, because I just heard
He would,
Mike.
yeah.
Oh,
He
interesting.
it's funny you say that because he was one of they called him the long hairs because he had long hair when Mike was, not my the gentleman that you were
The
first picking
guy.
up on there.
Okay, that's so funny. Yeah, I just feel like he was just letting you know he was around when you were putting the
Oh,
whatever, thinking about the bike lock, putting that on or whatever. And but there, I also felt like there was a name like Rick.
Rick.
Yeah.
Let's see. I
You might
can't
need to
place that one.
marinate, but I'm also hearing Mike, so it could be the K sound. But I really think there's also a Rick on the other side for
Yeah,
you too,
I'll
or
keep it in mind for
just
sure.
keep it in mind. And it, I feel like there's a Rick reference at some point, so I think it'll come up. But yeah,
All
and there's
right.
also a T-shirt that he just showed me that I think you wear of his, or like he has.
A T-shirt of
It's
his.
like a rock. He's okay. Well, I'll tell you what it is. I'm digging too deep. What he's showing me is like a rock T-shirt. It's
A
like
rock
a
T-shirt.
like that has
Uh,
like a band name on it.
I'm trying to think. Oh, so I have a ton of band t-shirts though. That could be it.
It could,
I
yeah. I
mean,
mean,
literally almost 98% of my shirts are band
oh,
shirts.
mine are too. I know mine, mine are too. There was something about a band T-shirt that has to do with him. So just think about that, and we'll reconvene about it. But he just
For
showed me
sure.
something about like either your mom might have his shirt, or somebody has his band T-shirt.
She
Uh,
very well could, yeah.
yeah, there's something about somebody wearing it, even though he's passed. So again, but that's really cool. Bike lock. That's how it comes in.
I know.
I'm like, bike lock. What is
And
that?
it's literally, like I said, it was like, I don't know, half hour before, because like I said, I play in a band. We have a show this coming weekend, so I had my guitar case out and I was putting things away, setting my guitars up. I ran through our set before the podcast, and I literally looked at the thing. I was like, oh yeah, I should get a bike lock for that. you
I
know,
mean, it's just that, and they're inside. They're in your head. They're in your head too, which
they're
is
in my
kind of
head. Yeah,
weird.
no,
Yeah, I
that's
had
great though.
a.
I love that.
I know. I actually had an interesting thing happen where I was in an intimate moment, and I started hearing this man's name over and over and over, and I was like, "What?" And I didn't even necessarily think there was a spirit. I was just like, "Why is that name?" While this is happening, why am I hearing? It's like someone was shouting his name in my ear,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
and then afterwards, I'm like, "Oh my god, it's his dad."
yeah.
It's his dad, but his dad went by a nickname. Like it was like that name, but a short, like a. His name wasn't Rob. It's as if your name were Robert, and then it was Bobby. But
So
like
you're talking about the gentleman that you were picking up on for me?
no, this was something that happened where I was in how I
Oh, a
was saying
different.
they're
Okay,
in your
different scenario.
head.
Sorry.
It was
Yeah.
like so I'm in this like weird intimate moment. Well, not
Oh
weird.
yeah.
It's not a weird intimate moment. It's just a regular intimate moment. And suddenly I
Oh
start
right.
hearing this man's name. This was
Oh, I
not
see.
his name, but let's pretend that I heard Robert, Robert, Robert.
Sure.
And I was like,
Yep.
why is that name in my head? And then about half hour later, I was like, his dad's name was Bobby.
Yeah.
And
There you
I'm
go.
like, oh my God, was his dad? Why? And that's the other thing is people sometimes think like, do spirit watch me when I'm like in the shower or on
Oh
the
right.
toilet? Or
Yeah.
what do you say to that?
Well, so here's the thing. Again, doing the unfiltered thing.
Yeah.
There was a time where this was the dynamic between a sister and her brother. I'm just going to say that they would constantly pick on each other or like maybe barge into the bathroom when the other one was in there, just as like that was their connection and that was their sense of humor. He had passed and he came through and he made the comment that, again, this is it's kind of rough, but
I know.
he's like, tell my sister I know that she was in the restroom before the reading.
Yeah.
And it's picking on her, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that was, and so I said that to her, and she goes, that he would, he would say that.
Right.
And then she goes to validate I was in the restroom before this reading. She goes, that SOB, like, I can't believe he brought that up.
That's wild.
However, I don't think that they are breaking any sort of boundaries or anything. I think they're not just sitting there being like, "Yep, I'm going to sit next to you during every single second of your life." I think
Yeah.
when it's private time, they will respect that. Um, but if it's a brother joking with a sister or something, and that was 100% a validating thing, they might bring that up. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think they're watching a shower or use the restroom or anything like
I
that.
don't think so either. I think what
No,
it is like, okay, you like sometimes I get now because before my readings, I want to go, pee before so that I'm can focus for an hour.
sure, yeah,
And often I'll get the names start coming in while I'm on the
right,
toilet.
yep,
But
yep.
I know that it's not that the spirit is like the spirit's not concerned with what's the physical body and what's happening.
Well, right, yeah,
It's just that they're merging with my energy field. For all I
exactly,
know, it could be like Tron, where they see, like, or in Stranger Things, where every time she goes in, she's in that watery place in the dark light.
yeah,
Like maybe they don't see me doing the thing; they just see me as like a figure in a
right,
vast space, and they're connecting with my energy. So they're not like,
right,
"What are you doing over there?" It's
yeah,
just
right,
that I'm merging energies with the person that I'm in physical proximity with.
right.
Therefore, the person who's their loved one is coming through, knowing that I have my antenna up, and
I
they're
love
like,
that.
oh, and I didn't say anything because that father was a traumatic figure like in this person's life, and I was like, I don't, and also I'm not sure how he'd receive that. It's like and that's the other thing is we have to know discernment. I was like, I know his dad's trying to get my attention.
Yeah,
I know that it's a sensitive subject. I know that this guy is like open-minded but not super spiritual. I don't want to bring it up. Like, I don't want to
yeah,
bring up something traumatic. If his father wants to come to him in a dream, I'm like, you can do that, but I need
sure.
permission. I'm not just going to bring that
Yes.
up out of nowhere.
Permission is huge. People ask me all the time, like, are you ever in a grocery store and have like, spirits come to you and then you got to get a message? And I'm like, well, first of all, It doesn't happen often because I've learned to turn it off.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned to disassociate from, like, because one of the best advice that a friend gave to me years ago was keep a foot in both worlds. You know, don't
Yeah.
be lost in one or the other. You know, stay grounded, but also be a spiritual person. Be
Hmm.
spiritual, but don't be all that. You know, like like I said, keep a foot in both worlds. And so I have set boundaries with spirit. When it's time for me to do readings, or they know I'm going to do a reading, I'm like, yeah, I will give it my 110%. Like, you have got my full and honest attention. If
Yeah.
I'm not doing that, I don't want to hear it. You know, and it's
Yeah.
no offense. It just is for me and boundaries that I set. But you know, it doesn't stop sometimes where spirit will come to me. If, again, I was in a grocery store one time, and I kid you not, this woman's father came to me, and he wanted me to get a message to his daughter, who was standing, you know, maybe 10, 12 feet away. And just for, like, as an odd experiment, because I'm a bit of a scientist
Hmm.
sometimes, I said, sir, I was like, I love that you're coming through. I appreciate that you're coming through so much. You have no idea. I was like, but if you want me to get a message to your daughter from you, go get her to talk to me in some way or shape or form.
Oh,
So it did two things. It had validated for me that he was there in spirit. And then it also was him kind of facilitating that. And I kid you not, she comes over, she starts wandering closer and closer to me. I'm like, get out of here. Like, you've got to be kidding me. So I was staring at the salads, you know, the chopped salads or whatever. And she goes, oh, you know, she gets close enough to me. She goes, you know, my dad loved Caesar salads. You know, he used to eat
no.
them almost every day. And, you know, he's been gone 2 years, she goes. And I was like, get out of here. Like, well, she talked to me, she brought him up, like, and I said, man, I was like, that's funny you say that. You know, this is what I do. Would you be open to a message? Are you okay with that? She said, sure. And I told her what her dad wanted to say, and she was, you know, we had a moment in the grocery store. But it was wild because, like I said to him, you get her to do that. And she did. And I watched it in real time. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this is
Magic is
unreal.
real.
And even after doing this for 10 years, like, I am baffled constantly. It just, and I hope I never lose that. I hope that, you know, when spirit comes to me like a private reading or a gallery and they say these wild evidential things, I hope that I'm never like, yeah, that's just par for the course. I hope it
I
blows my
know.
mind every time, you know, because I think it will. But I never want it to be mundane or just casual. It just, because it's always magic, it's always amazing, and like proof that spirit's love is beyond anything that we could ever fathom, you know.
Wow. I could talk to you for 12 more hours, but I won't do that to you
Same.
or anyone else. But that, I think that's such a beautiful place for us to end for
Sure.
now. I feel like we can talk again, because there's so much to unpack, unravel,
Yeah.
and talk about. But I love speaking with other mediums. And thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And I will have all of your links below.
Thank you.
Do you do online teaching, Oh, I'm sure you do online readings, right? Or phone
I
readings.
yeah,
You do phone readings.
Yeah, so I do phone readings. I can do online readings. I do meet people in person out of the office I had mentioned earlier at
That's right.
Mercaba Soul in Augusta. And I do private gallery events. I mean, usually all over New England. Um, right now, I don't have anything too far south. So I think the farthest south right now I have is maybe Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be in, oh boy, I think it's West Warwick next year at the Crown Plaza Hotel, which is going to be super fun and super cool. This September, I'll be back at the Augusta Civic Center for the Maine Paranormal and Horror Convention, doing a gallery reading there, which is going to be great. Hopefully, if it sells out, it'll be around 250 people. But I'm trying to get it sold out because the sponsors for the event are two really awesome Maine companies. It's Mr. Drew and his Animals too. It's like an exotic animal rehab, and
Oh,
then Misfits
cool.
Rehab, which is a local Maine, New England animal rehabilitation place. So they're sponsoring the event, and proceeds from that gallery are going to them. So the better it is, the better I can share the love and just help everybody out. You know.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome event. And
Thank you.
I care so much about that too. Animal protection, animal welfare.
Yeah.
I almost drove to pick up a dog to save it from a, a kill shelter last night, but I ran
Mhm.
out of time, and thank God he got adopted at the last minute. But
Oh, good. Yeah.
I was literally like on the horn, like, how do I get there? What do I do? You
I
know,
know.
so
Yeah.
thank you to all the people who do that great work. It has been so awesome to meet you, and it's just so fun, and like, I love that you have that same sense of magic, because we're regular people doing something magical, and that's why this is called Magic is Real. This is not magic, it's literally real. It's not
Yeah.
supernatural, it's
That's
natural.
right.
It's not paranormal, it's normal. We can all
Right.
do this. Magic is everywhere, Spirit is everywhere, and you
Mhm.
don't have to, it's not woo woo, it's science.
No.
It mixes with science. Science
Yes.
is part of it.
Absolutely. fully agree. The synapses that fire in our brain, that is energy, that cannot be destroyed or or at least not destroyed, right? That has to go somewhere. And I think it goes back into maybe like a collective consciousness or to God or whatever you want to call it, the universe, but that energy exists and information and who we are stays in that energy. And it's always around us all the time. But yeah, it's wild. It's
So
amazing.
well said.
And magic is real. I agree with you,
It
and I love the name
is.
of the show.
Thank you for being on it with me, Christopher Brown. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to keeping in touch and sharing more amazing stories. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Absolutely. It's been my honor. Thank you so much.